kaw suma ate.
It was clear that the death was being caused by the military personnel at the time.
Te kon nak de gogu nonu ñi nga xamne ñoy soldat yi so xewon bal ñom ñoo ko def.
And so I could not have arrived at any other decision but to just acquit and discharge the accused person.
Kon nak amuma dara lu may mëna def lu moy ma ewi nak ki nga xamne mom lañ ko tuumal dal def teggi nak bolem tuuma buñ ko tegon.
Yes. So
you may continue.
Yes, so when I delivered the judgment,
jamono bi nga xamé agal na suma dogal,
I went home as usual.
Ma ñibi
continue with my private life.
Dal di tok nak comme ni ma day def rek.
I recall in the evening going to see a friend.
Fateleku na ci ngon gi bi may dem séti suma ben xarit
who happens to be a lawyer now but apparently a law student at the time.
Ci tamen jamono ji lawyer la te jamono bu dal ku doon jang yefi lawyer la.
Yes, one James Mendy.
Ku ñu xamé James Mendy.
So in the evening around 8 p.m. or thereabout,
ci ngon gi ci boori juroom ñetti waxtu yi ci guddi,
my dad called me.
Suma papa call ma
and asked where I was.
Laaj ma fan la nek.
And I said I was with my friend.
Ci la ko ne ma ngi suma xarit bi.
But I'm about to come back home.
Waaye na ma ngi ñibisi.
And then he said to me
that
they noticed a vehicle around the compound.
Dañ gis ben auto ci boori kër gi,
which had no number plate.
Te amul nak number.
And it was tinted.
Te auto bu ñuul la do nekké ci biti do gis ki nekk ci biir.
And so they were worried.
Te jaaxle nañ.
But I said to them that well it could be any vehicle.
Ci la leen wax ne apa na nekk auto bu ne rek.
And so maybe they were just worried because of the fact that they were scared of what might happen.
Ni leen jaaxloo rek bo dekkoon ne pour ñu xam nak lan moy wara xew.
At the time. Yes.
Is it that because at this time your father was aware of the judgment you had delivered earlier in the day?
Ndax jamono bobu sa papa xamone nan dogal bi nga xamne mom nga jëlon ci bés bobu?
Yes, because at some point he used to come and attend court proceedings even though I was really against that.
Waaw légo-léegi daf daa ñëw sax teew si sumay court waaye tax jam nekk na mbir moo xam ne daal du ma daan neex dama ko daan dingat.
He must have been proud of you.
Kon dafa mel ni moom ku la daan puugarewu la.
Yes, coming from a very humble background, yes, he was proud of me for the fact that I actually I happened to be a lawyer after so many years of struggle. Yes.
Waaw comme rek fiñ bàyyi ko rek nga xam ne ni daal puugaroo na ma nekk naa lawyer ci ay at yu bari.
Can you tell the commission why he was worried that he saw a vehicle hanging around?
Di nga wax commission bi lan moo taxoon sa papa jaaxle woon bi nga xamee ni gis na moto bu ñuul boobu amul benn number plate di wulaaru seen boori kër.
I think it was common knowledge that anyone who lived in the Gambia at the time
nekkoon nag loo xam ne ñëpp ko xamoon fii képp koo xam ne yaa ngi si réewi Gambia
would be very much aware of the activities of the security force at the time.
Xam nga nag yëngatu yi nga xam ne ni ñi yëngu ci wàlli kaaraange ñu ngi ko daan def.
And in fact during the course of this TRRC I'm sure there are so many testimonies regarding what happened to so many people at the time.
Te gis naa ne si toogaay TRRC bi am na yu bari yoo xam ne nettali nañ ko fi ci li daan am.
Allegations of unlawful detention and unlawful of torture and so on and so forth.
Tuumaay loo xam ne ni na mu ngi jëm ci jàppoo teg benn place te dëppawut ak yoon ak métital yoo xam ne dëppawut ak yoon.
Whether they were true or not, but then these were daily occurrences that were happening within the society at the time.
Moo xam dëgg la wala dëgg daal waaye li na mooy yi nga xam ne moo daan xew si suñu biir jamono boobu.
As in people were talking about it.
Ndax nit ñi ñu ngi ko daan laam-laamee.
And so it is so natural that people will naturally be afraid whenever they see these kind of situations because a vehicle with tinted glass and no number plate is usually associated with the security forces at the time.
Ndax nag dana nekk jamono boo xam ne nii de nit ñi jamono nañ di ragal lu mel noonu ndax oto boo xam ne nii oto bu amul number plate la te weer yi dañ ñuul soo nekkee ci biti doo gis ki nekk ci biir lu bari daal dañ la wax ne oto ñu yëngu ci wàlli kaaraange la.
Continue to tell the commission the conversation you continued to have with your father on the phone.
Galil nag waxal commission bi waxtaan yi nga xam ne moom nga doon waxal sa papa.
Yes, so my point was very clear that it could have been any vehicle.
Suma kàddu nag lu wér la woon ne wax naa leen ne daal mun naa nekk oto bu ne rek.
And so maybe they were just imagining things.
Te tamit bu daal ke dañ ne ñu ngi xalaat ay yeneen.
I wanted to come back home, but then my mother just picked up the phone from my dad.
Bëggoon naa ñëw nag waaye suma yaay jël téléphone bi ci suma papa.
And then with the very strict voice that I should stay where I was and spend the night there.
Ci ay kàddu mu ne ma daal fi mu nekk fa nga mun a nekk fanaan fa.
Yes, and go ahead.
So at this point, you're telling us that your parents was scared for your safety.
Bon jamono bobu dafa melni sa way juri yépp ñu ngi ragalon dal sa mbiri karange.
They were.
waaw ragaloon nañ kay.
And they asked you to stay where you were.
Légui nak ñu ne nga dess dal fa nga xamne fa nga nekkon.
Yes, I even spent the night where I went to just to see my friend.
foofu laa fanaan sax fa ma dëkk fa ma demoon seeti suma benn xarit.
Can you tell the commission whether you were worried for your safety?
Ndax di nga mëna commission bi ndax yow tamit jaxlé won nga sa wàlli karange?
I was because, in fact, mainly based on the fact that you live with your family and they are constantly worried about your safety.
waaw jaaxle woon naa ndax nekk ak sa njaboot ñoom itamit ñoom ñu jaaxle lu jëm ci sa wàlli kaaraange.
So you cannot avoid thinking about your own safety as well.
mënuloo ñàkk nekk di xalaat sa kaaraange yooyu tamit.
Whether it is justifiable or not, but you cannot still avoid.
moo xam nag lu wér la wala wér waaye daal foog see nga nekk di ko xalaat.
Were you worried about the safety and security of your parents and your family?
Ndax yow tamit jaxlé won nga nak ci li nga xamne modi karange sa way juri ak sa mbokay?
Yes, because I would have preferred to be at the house.
waaw ndax bu ina la woon nag pour ma nekkoon ci kër gi.
So that if their worries were real, then I would have been the one to face the consequences.
ndax bu fekkee nag li leen jaaxaloon daal nekk na lu am boobaa ni kon ma dékku ko.
So the answer is yes.
waaw kon tontu bi nag mooy waaw.
You have told the commission that you had to end up spending the night at your friend's house.
Wax nga commission bi ne da nga far mujjé fanaan sax kër xarit ba nga demoon?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you tell us what happened after that?
Wax ñu lan mo xew nak gannaaw lolu?
So I spent the night there and then woke up in the morning.
ma fanaan fa nag si suba gi ma xëy.
I rushed to my the house.
ma daw dem ca kër ga.
To dress up to go to work.
ma solu dem liggéey.
And by the time the driver had already arrived.
te jamono boobu nag driver bi agsi na ba pare.
So I went to work.
ma dem nag liggéey.
Then while I was in the courtroom administering over cases.
si jamono bi ma nekkee ci court bi di dëkku ay leo.
So the registrar of the court at that time, one Ramatulai, I forgot the last name.
kii nga xam ne moo nekkoon registrar bu court bi ku ñu xamee Ramatulai fàtte naa ni mu sant nag.
I also saw her walking towards me in the courtroom.
ma gis ko mu ngi dox da di ñëw si man.
That was very, very normal to do.
loolu nag luy faral di am la.
Because as the registrar of the court, sometimes they will have very vital information to convey.
ndax ki nga xam ne mooy registrar bu court bi léeg-léeg ñu am ay bataaxel yu wér yoo xam ne war nañ la koy àggale.
But on this day, I knew that I had the sense that something might have gone wrong somewhere.
waaye nag boobu nag njottoon naa dara ne daal mun naa am lu moo xew.
So she came and told me that I was needed at Banjul immediately.
ci la ma wax ne ma dañ la soxla Banjul si saasi.
That the CJ had requested my presence in his office immediately.
ne Chief Justice daal aajo na pour ma dem ci office am si saasi.
Can you confirm who was still the CJ at that time?
Ni nga mëna wéral kan mooy woon Chief Justice ba jamono boobu?
This was Emmanuel Fagbele.
waaw ku ñu xamee Emmanuel Fagbele la.
Yes, so I told the registrar at the time.
ci laa wax na registrar bi ci jamono boobu.
That I will complete my cases.
dinaa jekkali suma case yi.
And then go to Banjul and see the CJ.
ma dem Banjul nag seeti CJ bi.
And she said, no, the CJ said that it's very urgent and you must suspend or adjourn all your cases and then go to Banjul and see him.
ci la ma wax ne ma lii ne dafa jàmpa lool CJ mu ne daal foog si nga toxal nag sa yëpp daal di dem fekki ko.
So I adhered to the instruction.
ma dégg ndigal loolu.
Adjourn all the cases.
ma daal di dàq nag jotaay yooyu yëpp.
And I drove to Banjul.
ma daal di dawal dem Banjul.
So I went in the reception.
ma dem si reception bi foofu.
And I announced my presence there.
ma daal di yóbbaale suma bopp ne àgg naa.
But then I had to wait for a very long period of time.
ci laa xaar di bu yàgg nag.
Before my presence would be requested in the CJ's office.
balaa ñu ma àggale nag si office CJ bi.
So, but then the reason was that.
waaye nag li ko waraloon mooy.
The Chief Justice at the time was waiting for the Judicial Secretary, who was Landing Sane, is currently a High Court Judge.
nga xam ne mu ngi doon xaar ku ñu xamee Landing Sane High Court Judge la.
Currently a High Court Judge.
jamono ji la nekk High Court Judge.
He was the Judicial Secretary at the time.
time boobu nag Judicial Secretary bi la woon.
And
Mr. Gomez?
yes.
Up to that point, do you know why there was a request for you to report to the CJ's office?
Mr. Gomez, ndax ba jamono jooju xamoon nga lan moo tax ñu soxla woon la office Chief Justice?
Oh yes, I had no prior information, like direct information as to why I was called.
bu njëkk nga xamoon lan moo taxoon ñu ooma.
But I had no direct information as to why I was called. They didn't tell me as to why I was called.
waxuñu woon man nag lan moo taxoon ñu ooma.
But I knew at the time it was based on the prior judgment I gave the earlier day.
waaye xamoon naa nag ne mu ngi aju rek ci dogal bi nga xam ne defoon naa ko ca démb ja.
So definitely it was not I was not in doubt as to why I was sanctioned.
kon nag amoon benn jaaxle lan moo taxoon ñu oolu ma.
Was this a normal practice for magistrates to be sanctioned to the office of the CJ?
ndax loolu lu jaadu la woon pour ñu magistrate ñu di ko oo ci office chief justice bi.
Upon delivering a judgment that was of an interest to the state?
gannaaw boo xamee ne def na dogal boo xam ne itteel la ci njiitu réew mi.
At the time, yes. At the time, most of our colleagues would be called by the Chief Justice.
waaw ci jamono boobu de lu bëri na si sumay nawle Chief Justice bi da la leen dee mën a oo.
For decisions that were taken in court.
ci dogal yi nga xam ne jël nañ leen ci court bi.
That the Chief Justice thinks in one way or the other is erroneous.
foo xam ne nii Chief Justice bi gis na daal am na lu si xejam.
And so when I sat on the bench, all of my colleagues at the time.
time bi nga xamee ne maa ngi nekk ci bunti atte boobu suma nawle yëpp.
were in one way or the other worried about these situations with the
They were worried about the interferences.
Yes, that's correct.
Continue to tell the commission what happened when you got to the CJ's office.
So like I said earlier on, when the CJ was waiting for the Master of the High Court, who was the late Buba Jawa.
CJ bi la mu ngi doon xaar ki nga xam ne moo nekkoon Master of the High Court ndem si Yàlla Buba Jawo.
And the then Judicial Secretary Landing Sane, currently High Court Judge.
Ak ki nga xam ne moo nekkoon Judicial Secretary Landing Sane.
So when they came,
bi ñëwee nag
I was asked to go in.
ñu wax ma ne ma dem.
So I went and inside the office and I found the CJ sitting and together with the JS and the Master of the High Court.
ba ma demee nag ci laa fekk CJ ak ñaari kilifa yooyu nga xam ne loolu lañ tuddoon sànq si gannaaw.
So I came and then they asked me to sit down.
ma ñëw nag ñu ne ma toogal.
I sat down and then the Chief Justice at the time just rose.
ma toog nag jamono boobu Chief Justice bi jóg taxaw.
He had newspapers from different outlets.
ci la amee ay kayiti xibaar yoo xam ne mu ngi nekk ci bu jóge ko ci yenn buntu kayiti xibaar yu uute.
Because in the morning, most of the newspapers had already published the outcome of the case, the judgment.
li nga xam ne mooy kayiti xibaar yu bëri nag daal dinañu bind nag li nga xam li dogal bi woon ci atte boobu.
So he was not pleased at all.
moom nag kontaanutoon.
So he started telling me that look what you have done.
ci la ma wax ne ma xoolal li nga def.
See the headlines in all these newspapers.
seetal nag buntu tesekaay xibaar yi li ñu gën a fësal ci seen boppi xibaar yi.
Was like yes.
As per your statement, you said the CJ was furious. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you describe his reaction to you on that day?
Yes, because he was trying to blame me for delivering a very erroneous judgment.
ndax mu ma doon yedd nag di ma wax ne daal lan moo tax ma def dogal boobu xejam boobu.
And that as far as he's concerned, the judgment is totally wrong.
tey tamit comme si moom xelam fi mu toll àtte boobu noonu dëppoo ak yoon.
How can I acquit the driver in that circumstance?
ci kaw loolu naka laay ewee driver boobu ci lu mel noonu.
When he could have only stopped and he failed to stop.
ci foo xam ne waroon naa taxaw te taxawut.
And therefore he had to answer calls from above.
tey tamit mu ngi uyu ay call yoo xam ne ñu ngi koy callee ca kaw.
And that I had put him in a very funny situation.
tey tamit maa ngi ko dugal si lu kenn xamut.
When he said he was receiving calls from above, do you know what he meant with that?
Well, when it comes to Fagbele saying that, yes, I assume that he was referring to the office of the president.
Wow,
I could neither confirm the information nor deny it at the time. But that was his position.
Continue about the meeting in the office.
Yes, so he continued ranting. Blaming me and telling me that now how will the international community see this? So we all keeping quiet, myself and the Master of the High Court and the JS at the time. Because mainly I did not see any any reason as to why I should reply to or make a comment as to what he was saying.
ndax gisuma benn dalil lu tax may war a tontu lim doon wax.
But then the worst of all,
waaye nag li ci gën a bon mooy.
he now sat down
mu toog
and started telling me, like in very derogatory terms.
ci wax yoo xam ne wax ju gën a ñàng la.
I felt it was more or less like drawn towards embarrassing me, making me feel bad.
anam goo xam ne pour rusloo ba ma mer.
Telling me that you don't even understand the law on negligence.
tey tamit ci la ma waxtaan ne xamuloo li luwaa lu jëm ci sàggante.
Because if you understand the law on negligence, you wouldn't have arrived at this decision.
waaw tax bu fekkoon ne xamoon nga loolu ne ko doon agsi fii.
So I was still keeping quiet.
ba léegi maa ngi noppi.
And he said to me that, well, tell me what your opinion is as to the law of negligence.
ci la ma wax ne ma léegi waxal leen mooy sa xalaat ci luwaa yi sàggante.
But then I knew that he was waiting for, it was more like a trap.
te waaye xamoon naa ne daal mu ngi mel ni ku ma fiir rek.
Because he was waiting for me to give him an answer so that he can bank on that.
waaye nag maa ngi foog ne maa xam naa ne daf doon xaar pour ma tontu ko rek.
And then
wéeru ci loolu.
and then try to assert his position that indeed my legal reasoning was totally wrong.
pour nag mu ne gaar dëgëral nag ne su ma xalaat ni mu demee loolu daal dëpput ak yoon.
Thus I arrived at that decision.
ba ma tax ma àgg ci dogal boobu.
So at the beginning I refused to give an answer.
ci njëlbeen nag ma bañ koo tontu.
He pressed and pressed and pressed, and then I offered an answer.
mu wax rek bépp jamono joo xam ne nii na ma tontu ko.
Then he said to me, look, see, Master, JS, see what I have told you. He doesn't even understand his law on negligence.
ci la wax na yeneen kilifa xool leen wax naa leen ne kii xamul sax lu jëm ci luwaay càggante.
So I said to him, well, I think I've finished my legal education.
ci laa ko wax ne yaakaar naa su ma njàng lu aju ci wàllu looya ak dogal jàng jeexal naa ko.
And at the moment, I was not going to school.
te jamono ji nekkuma di dem jàngi.
And so he was free to have his own opinion as to what the law is.
te tamit nag moom time boobu noonu mer na pour nag xam nag lan la loi wax foofu.
But my reasoning at the time is what I used to arrive at the judgment.
waaye nag su ma dogal ci jamono boobu mooy pour ma àggali fi ma àggoon.
It could be wrong.
mun naa ñàkk a nekk yoon.
It could be correct.
mun naa nekk yoon itamit.
But until it is tested,
waaye ba balaañ koy kàtte.
it remains to be the position.
mooy li fa war a nekk.
And so therefore, if what an aggrieved party could have done is to appeal.
ci kaw loolu nag li nga xam ne loolu lañ waroon a def beneen parti bi li ñu war a def mooy ñu d'appel.
I was just at the bottom of the hierarchy.
ndax man ci suufatu laa nekkoon.
I said to them they could go all the way to the Supreme Court.
mën nañoo dem ba ci Supreme Court bi.
And then he didn't like the response.
waaye nag tontu ba neexutoon ko.
So he asked the master and the JS whether they have any comment.
ci la laaj nag ñaari kilifa yooyu noonu ndax am nañ benn kàddu buñ ci war a wax.
The master made a comment.
master bi nag wax.
In agreeing with the CJ.
pour ànd ak CJ bi.
That the reasoning was wrong.
mais li nekkoon suma xalaat dëkkuwut ak yoon.
I was surprised.
man nag bu jaaxal ma lool.
Because I had met with the master just immediately. Just as at the time I was president over the case.
ndax tase naa ak master bi just ci diir bu gàtt bu jamono boo nga xam ne maa ngi doon dogal kàddu yi.
Within the high court premises.
ci kanami high court bi.
And he had made comments that Mr. Gomez, your worship, I understand you're the one handling the file, the case.
ci la ma wax ne ma Mr. Gomez yaakaar man yaa nekk di handle case boobu.
These soldiers they went and killed the taxi driver and then the victim, and now they are blaming on the taxi driver.
mais ñi soldats yi ñu ngi nii rey benn nit ba pare di ko teg ci kaw taxi driver.
I even recall telling him that jokingly, are you interfering with the matter?
ci la ko di ko caaxaane sax ne ko ndax da nga ci bëgg a dugal sa loxo.
Then he said no.
mu ne ma déedéet.
So for him to now have a total departure of opinion.
ci moom nag pour mu génn ci saa si toxu nag ca fam nekkoon.
It was really surprising.
jaaxal na ma lool.
But not that much, because I expect at the time as well people were really taking decisions based on so many factors, one of which is to safeguard their jobs and their positions.
waaye jaaxle bi nag di dem jéggiwutoon dayoo sax ndax xamoon naa ne jamono boobu nit ñaa ngi def loo xam ne pour mën a musal seen bopp rek ak mën a taxaw ci seen toogu seen si liggéeykaay.
The judicial secretary as well made a comment.
Judicial secretary moom itamit wax ay kàddu.
But he wouldn't criticize my judgment.
waaye nag nekku doon di ŋàññi nag suma dogal.
I recall he told the CJ that people have different opinion in various cases.
da ko wax ne ko nit ñi nag dañ di uute ci ni nga xam ne loolu mooy seen xalaat ci ni nga xam ne noonu lay ñuy dogale yenn layoo yi.
Yes, but the meeting went on at some point.
waaye nag meeting bi dem ba yenn jamono.
And I was asked to go out of the office.
ñu génne ma ci office bi.
To wait for them to have deliberation.
pour nag ñoom ñu daal di àggale benn kàddu ñoom it.
I did that and I was called at some point in time back in the office.
mu ne na ma def pour ñu owaan ma benn jamono.
So I was asked to go back to my office.
seen waa ne naa ñibbi sama office.
And then they will get back to me when they need me.
danañ jokkoo ak man saa bu ma soxlaa.
So I went back to the office.
ma dem si office bi.
So once in a while they will be I'll be called to Banjul.
léegi ñu ooma ma dem Banjul.
And to answer to the CJ.
pour uyu ji CJ Chief Justice bi.
But for the most part, in fact, I will be in Banjul and I will sit at the reception for a very long period of time.
li si ëpp na dinaa de dem Banjul toog si reception bi ba diir bu yàgg.
Without even seeing the CJ.
te duma gis CJ bi.
And at some point, I was requested to make copies of the judgment and then send it to Banjul.
léegi dañ may wax sax ne naa sottandeku judgment boobu li nga xam ne lañ ci def ma dal di ko yónnee Banjul.
And that was done.
te loolu defoon nañ ko.
And
Mr. Gomez?
yes.
Are you telling this commission that you were called to the CJ's office on several occasions because of this judgment you had delivered?
dañu bëgg a wax ne dañ la daan oo pour nga uyu ji office Chief Justice ndig li ko waral rek mooy dogal bi nga xam ne moom nga jël.
Very correct.
Can you tell the commission about how many times you were called to the CJ's office?
ñu nga mën a wax commission bi ñaata yoon lañ la oo ci office Chief Justice.
This would be about 3 or 4 times, but apparently I only met the CJ once.
lii mun naa nekk ñett ba ñeenti yoon. waaye nag benn yoon rek laa si jàkkaarloog Chief Justice.
Which was the day immediately after the judgment.
lii mooy bés bi nga xam ne nii mooy ci ëllëg si bi ma defee dogal boobu.
But the subsequent times,
waaye nag ci li nga xam ne nii mooy li ci tegu.
as I stated earlier, I would be there for a very long period of time without even seeing him.
dinaa daan nekk foofu si diir bu yàgg te duma ko gis.
Sometimes I will see the JS who will call me and ask me to go home.
léegi nag JS bi dana de call mu ne may dem ñibbi.
Yes. So.
Can you tell this commission what happened next?
wax nga mën a wax commission bi nag lana xew gannaaw bi.
Yes, later on at some point I received a call from the JS.
gannaaw loolu ma jot na téléphone bu jógee ko ci JS.
I could not tell the timeline between the judgment and the call, but it would have been a month or 2 because I was eventually transferred.
mënuma wax nag diir bi naka la toll diggante bi ma attee ak biñ may call waaye mun naa nekk ci diirab weer wala ñaari weer ndax jamono boobu sax toxal nañ ma.
Yes, so the JS called me and then asked me to come to his office.
JS nag call ma ne ma dem ci office am.
And then when I went to see him,
bi ma demee pour gis ko nag.
he said to me that he knows that I'm no longer in good terms with the Chief Justice.
ci la ma wax ne waaw xam naa nag fi mu nekk nii suma diggante Chief Justice bi neexatut.
And as far as he's concerned, he's worried about the relationship that was really getting sour by the day.
ci la wax ne daal gis na ne daal seen diggante daal neexatut.
And in his words, he will transfer me
ci ay kàddoom bëgg na ma toxal.
outside the jurisdiction.
ma génn na ci jurisdiction boobu ci béréb yooyu.
That is not, he will not even take me to Banjul or Bundung or Birkama.
ne daal du ma yóbbu sax ay Banjul Bundung wala Birkama.
But I will be transferred to oversee, to be a travel magistrate.
pour ma nekk na magistrate boo xam ne damay dox di toxu.
Which is, I will oversee Esau, Farafenni, and Mansa Konko.
nga xam ne dinaa dem Esau Farafenni ak Mansa Konko.
So I didn't say anything.
waxuma dara.
I thank him for the intervention as far as he was concerned. He intervened in the matter.
ma gërëm ko nag lool ci li nga xam ne noonu la ci dugalee loxoom ci mbir moomu.
I took the transfer letter.
ma jël nag transfer letter bi.
Went back to Kanifing and handed over my office to the principal magistrate.
dem Kanifing nag jébbale suma office ci principal magistrate bi.
And I subsequently assumed my functions at these new jurisdictions.
ma commencé nag suma liggéey ci jurisdiction ci nga xam ne ni moom fi ma toxal.
Mr. Gomez, can you tell the commission how you felt about this transfer?
Mr. Gomez, ndax mën ngaa wax commission bi biñ la toxalee noonu na ko loo yëgoon.
Even though the JS at the time gave me his own reason as to why I was transferred.
Naam sax JS bi moo wax na ma nag lan moo taxoon ñu toxal ma.
My own reasoning was that.
man suma xalaati bopp moo nekkoon ne.
I was transferred because I was currently working in a jurisdiction wherein so many high-profile cases may come to.
mooy rek ne daal maa ngi liggéey fi béréb boo xam ne nii mun na am tefaar yu ko yoo xam ne mun nañ fa agsi.
And so the Chief Justice at the time wouldn't want me to actually serve as a hindrance towards his interests.
te boobaa Chief Justice du bëgg may liggéey foo xam ne nii mën naa dox digganteem ak soxlaa joom fu mu nekk.
So that is the main reason why I was transferred.
loolu nag moo tax ñu talli ma toxal.
And so it was more of a punishment to me
daanaka daal mel ni dañ ma doon toroxal noonu.
than normal administrative procedure.
ni anam yoo xam ne nii jaaruwaay la ci wàllu liggéey.
Because I was the only one transferred at that time.
ndax man rek lañ toxaloon ci jamono boobu.
And if you worked at the judiciary back then, you will understand that usually there are periods where magistrates are being transferred and circulated from in different courts.
te tamit gis nañu tamit am na jamono diir boo xam ne nii magistrat dañ leen toxal ci diggante ay court yu bokkut.
Yes.
Thank you. I was actually going to ask for you to explain that to the commission. But you have said it beautifully that at that time you were the only magistrate who was transferred. However, you've also stated in your statement that there was an issue with the judgment after you had delivered it. Can you explain to the commission?
Can you come again, please?
In your statement, you have referred to the fact that the judgment was forwarded to the Ministry of Justice for scrutiny.
Yes. Yes. Before I jump onto that, I would want to clarify the issue of the transfer as well. I said earlier I was the only magistrate who was transferred at the time. But then when they transferred me, there was already a magistrate who was overseeing naturally those jurisdictions. But then I was the reason for the transfer, so naturally he will have to come down so that I can go and assume office.
Yes. Mr. Gomez, in other words, you're trying to explain that your transfer was unique.
Yes, very well. It was very, very unique.
And that the transfer was done to stop you from listening to cases that the government had an interest in.
I would
say it was done to stop me from listening to cases that at the time the Chief Justice had interest in, because I will now come to that at the tail end of my explanation, wherein I will explain the different type of interference. There is a direct, indirect, and the perceived one. So this, at that point in time, I was dealing directly with the Chief Justice. So things that are of government interest, to him at the time, knowing Fagbele, these were things that he has personal interest in, because he was there to safeguard his own interests. Yes. So the issue regarding the file being sent to the Aegis chambers for scrutiny, I came to know about that at a later point. Because I understand that the file was open at the Aegis chambers. And when files are opened at the Aegis chambers, they are usually assigned to a counsel. Who will now write an opinion regarding whether, if it's an appellate matter, you will write an opinion regarding whether there are grounds of appeal or not. So the lawyer who was assigned this file, his name is one Ibrahim Jaita. Currently, I think at some point worked for the Gambian Diplomatic Mission in New York. So he wrote an opinion. Well, he informed me directly. So this is a direct conversation. So he informed me that he was assigned to write an opinion regarding the file. Which at the face of it is very normal, because if the state is not satisfied with the judgment, they can just appeal, and this is the procedure to follow. But then his decision was that there are no grounds of appeal.
waaye nag moom lim moo nekk ne amul daal dara lu waral pour ñu dal koo d'appel.
And the DPP at the time, I believe, is one Barkun.
tey tamit nag DPP bi moom jamono jooju mooy Barkun.
I understand that his superiors, I think Barkun, was not satisfied with the addition in the beginning.
ca njëlbeen yaakaar na Barkun mooy tamit doyloo dogal boobu.
And he had opined that they can assign him to another council for an opinion.
te tamit nag ci la xalaat ne daal moom ñu toxalaatal ko ci beneen council pour mu seet lii xalaatam.
But then they went by his opinion.
waaye nag dem nañ ci ànd nañ mu jéegi ak xalaatam.
And he informed me reliably that
ci la ma yëgal nag.
he even had to accompany the then DPP, who's Barkun, to a meeting with the Chief Justice.
te tamit ci la wax ne gunge na nag ki nekkoon DPP bi ci office Chief Justice bi.
And in my mind, that was the unusual part of it.
te tamit nag ci suma xalaat nekk na loo xam ne daal duutoon lu daan faral di am.
Because while it is very, very normal to appeal, write an opinion, appeal a judgment of the lower court.
waaye bu fekkee nag ne pour ñu ngi war a d'appel dogal boo xam ne ñu nekkee ci court bu ndaw bi.
It should be totally independent of any outside influence.
foog si rek mu nekk loo xam ne nii du am dara loo xam ne def na ko ñi si biti.
Talk less of the CJ's office.
waxuma laa nag office Chief Justice bi.
So he said to me in the meeting that that the CJ was not pleased with that, and because Barkun had told the CJ that, well, the lawyer who wrote the opinion is here, and then he said that there are no grounds of appeal.
ndax wax na ne Barkun ne ko lawyer bi bind ne daal amul dara loo xam ne ni dalil la pour ñu war koo d'appel mu ngi nii.
And that the CJ was not pleased and was saying that, well, you know, these young magistrates or lawyers, they don't follow instructions.
te tamit nag booba Chief Justice bi kontaanut mu ngi ko wax ne ko xam nga xale yu ndaw yi magistrate yu ndaw yi ak lawyer ndaw yi duñ di topp ndigal.
That if you have an opinion about the case,
ne boo amee benn xalaat ci wàllu dogal yooyu.
and your senior instructs you to do something different,
te tamit sa kilifa wax la nga def leneen lu uteeg loolu.
you should just follow your senior's the directions, because he knows best.
foog si rek nga topp sa kilifa gi lim la wax ndax moom mooy gën a am xel.
And yes, so that was the information I gathered from this Mr. Jaite.
loolu moo nekkoon xibaar bi nga xam ne moom laa jotoon ci Mr. Jaite.
And then the prosecutor in the case as well.
te prosecutor bi feeñal foofu tamit ni Mr. Mbalo.
At some point, he also informed me
ci yenn jamono sax mu yëgal ma ne.
that he was asked to write a report regarding the circumstances surrounding the judgment.
ne foofu mu bind report lu jëm ci wàlli àtte boobu noonu li ci aju yëpp.
And that had he done so, I would have been arrested perhaps.
te bu defoon loolu mun naa amal ni kon ñu jàpp ma.
And that he declined to do that. He told them that they should appeal the matter. If they want to appeal the matter, they should just forward the file to the Attorney General's office.
ne daal bu fekkee ne dañ bugg a d'appel nañ d'appel rek ñu yóbbu nag ba indi ni ci office bi.
Mr. Gomez, can you tell this commission why the CJ, Fakbele at the time, had such a great interest in this case?
Wow, Mr. Gomez, dax di nga mun a wax commission bi fii lan moo tax ba CJ bi Chief Justice boobu doonoon Fakbele jamono boobu lan moo taxoon mu aajoo woon lool ci àtte boobu noonu.
If you know Fakbele at the time,
boo xamee Fakbele ci waxtu woowu.
you will know that this was a Chief Justice.
da nga xam ne kii jamono Chief Justice la boo xam ne.
who was highly political.
koo xam ne dafa dugal boppam si wàllu politique trop.
And I'm saying this as a first-hand information.
maa ngi wax lii ndax si bataaxel bu njëkk.
because I had worked under him.
ndax liggéey naa ci ronam.
And so this was a man who would just wear political caps as well.
nekk na koo xam ne daal mbaxanaam politique rek la dee mujjee di sol.
In fact, he would even direct that at his time. He would even direct that names be sent, name of support staffs be sent to his office for those who are interested in to go and farm for the president.
ne daan wax sax ne daal turi ñi nga xam ne ñoo fay liggéeykat yi képp koo xam ne bëgg naa dem si tool yi président bi bay na àggale turam.
So it was normal for anyone to support any political party.
normal na nag jaadu na pour kenn ku nekk parti bu la neex nga ànd ca.
Yeah, some of us voted for all Gambians voted for the former administration at that time.
am ñu Gambie yu bëri woteel nañ nag nguur gi fi nekkoon.
But the doctrine of the independence of the judiciary, I believe, was very sacrosanct.
waaye nag li nga xam ne ni mooy sagoteeg liggéey buntu liggéeykaay àtteekaay bi na nekkoon na loo xam ne lu am solo la.
And so he should have been seen to be very independent.
te tamit waroon nañ koo gis ne koo xam ne ni kuy dox ak sagoom la.
And like I said, not only be independent, but to be seen to be independent.
nekkul rek nag ne dafa war a nekk kuy dox ak sagoom waaye nag nit ñi war nañoo xam ne kii kuy dox ak sagoom la.
As this is what will draw confidence from the public.
ndax lii mooy nekk li nga xam ne nii dana indi nag kóolute ci nit ñi.
And when they have confidence in the independence of the judiciary,
te buñ amee kóolute ci saguteeg buntu liggéeykaay àtte bi.
This will promote the rule of law.
lii nag dana nekk loo xam ne nii dana yéwénal lu jëm ci wàllu topp loi.
And the natural outcome will be you will have a very stable country, of course.
te tamit li cay fàqee ko mooy ne da nga am réew moo xam ne réew mu dal la.
Therefore, Mr. Gomez, you're telling this commission that
ci kaw loolu nag Mr. Gomez yaa ngi wax commission bi ne
the CJ then, Mr. Fagbele,
Chief Justice ba jamono jooja mu di Mr. Fagbele
allowed his political
moom dafa nangu nag li nga xam ne moo di wàlli politique
role
taxawaay bi mu cee jël
to influence the decisions he would make in his office that was to be independent.
pour doxal nag li nga xam ne moo di liggéeyam boo xam ne mu ngi koo def ci office bi te waroon a nekk liggéey boo xam ne daf koo def ci coobare boppam.
Yes, because if you call me, I will just take myself as an example. If you call me and tell me and attack my judgment based on the fact that you feel your boss or the executive is not pleased with the judgment,
danaa jël suma bopp def ko sant yoon ñu mel ni rek bu fekkee ne oo nga ma wan ma ne kontaanuloo ci dogal bi nga xam ne dogal def naa ko ndek sa boss moom di ñi jiite nguur gi daal jo kontaanuñ ci.
it's clear indication that you are allowing yourself to be politically influenced.
loolu dafa mel ni yaa ngay may sa bopp rek ne daal yow mun nañ laa watat fa waxtu wu ne ci wàlli politique.
Whether you are directed to act in that way or you're doing it in your own volition is still interference.
moo xam ndax dañ la digal nga def ko wala yow yaa ngi ko defee ci sa xoli bopp rek.
Mr. Gomez, is it correct for the CJ to perceive that the president is his boss?
Mr. Gomez ndax jaadu na nag pour Chief Justice bi gisee ne président bi mooy bossam.
That is a very tricky question.
loolu nekk na laajte de.
As lawyers, we will say it's not correct.
comme ay lawyer dañuy wax ne loolu daa jaaduwut.
Because we serve the public.
ndax ñun nit ñi la ñuy liggéeyal.
And the three arms of government, of course, the executive, judiciary, and the legislation.
di ñetti bunti nguur googu yëpp di buntu bi saytu wàlli doxalini atte beeg wàlli néegi député yi ak tamit ñoom ñi amee nguur gi ci kaw.
Even though there should be checks and balances, but then especially the judiciary, it should be absolutely independent.
foog si rek ñu am ay dugalante waaye nag buntu attekaay bi nag foog si rek mu nekk buntu boo xam ne dafay dogal sago.
And there are reasons as to why the judiciary should be independent absolutely.
te tamit nag am nañ nag dalil loo xam ne ni muy wane ne judiciary bi di buntu attekaay bi foog si rek muy dox ak sago boppam.
You don't even have to be a lawyer to even know as to why it should be independent.
nekkul ne da nga war a nekk lawyer rek mooy tax nga war a xam lan moo tax muy war a dox ak sagom.
Because here you have a body that is supposed to adjudicate fairly.
fii am nga fi buntu boo xam ne nii dafa war a atte ci jub.
Without partiality.
te duñ ci am benn parparloo.
And without fear or favor.
te duñ am dara luñ ragal wala am koo xam ne nii dañ ko bugg a xacc seen bopp rek yërëm ko.
So if you see yourself as serving another body or institution,
boo gisee sa bopp rek ne yaa ngi doxal ci beneen buntu liggéeykaay la.
if the CJ is to see himself as having a boss who is the president,
pour CJ bi gis ne daal am na boss bu mel ni président bi.
that will that may to a great extent influence the decisions.
kon nag loolu dafay gën a tax sax ñu gën cee dugal seen loxo.
But again, privately, one may say that yes, because as per our current constitution, is the president who hires and fires the CJ, even though there are procedures laid down for it.
naam sax am na ay satta yoo xam ne ni moom lañ doon waaye nag ci suñ jamono président bi moom mooy kii nga xam ne ni mooy jël liggéey mooy dàq liggéey yi tamit.
Even though there are legal procedures, guidelines laid down for it.
naam sax de am na ay satta yoo xam ne nii yu dëppoo yoon la yoo xam ne ni ñoo ko moom la koy doxee.
So I hope I answered your question.
yaakaar naa tontu naa sa laajte.
You definitely answered the question.
Waaw tontu nga ma.
Thank you.
And you answered it when you did say that,
te tontu nga ko jamono ji nga waxee ne.
as we understand it as lawyers,
comme ñun lawyer niñ ko xamee.
the office of the CJ should be independent
office Chief Justice dafa war a liggéey ci coobare boppam.
and not be answerable to the president.
te warta nekk koo xam ne dafay uyu ci ndigali président bi.
Right.
Mr. Gomez, from what you have just said,
Mr. Gomez,
you're telling this commission that under the watch of Fagbele,
commission Fagbele,
the Chief Justice then,
Chief Justice,
the judiciary was not independent. And he allowed interference and did acts that pleased the president.
The judiciary was not independent when I served, when I worked in the judiciary.
Judiciary time
Because aside my experience, there were other incidents happening at the time. If magistrates can be arrested over decisions taken in court and detained, possibly based on executive interference, you cannot in any way argue that the judiciary is independent. That is total disregard to the doctrine of independence of the judiciary. So yes, under Justice Fagbele, the judiciary was not independent.
Wow, Justice Fagbele in judiciary
Mr. Gomez, can you give us examples of magistrates that were arrested and detained?
Mr. Gomez, ndax di ñu mëna wax ci misal ay magistrate yo xamne jappon nañ leen tek leen ben béréb.
Yes, that will now take me to the arrest of His Worship Omar Jabang and Ibrahima Jaite.
Numa yobu ci magistrate Worship Ibrahima Jabang ak naka
Ibrahima Jaite, who is currently a High Court judge.
Ibrahima Jaite, High Court judge la.
When, in fact, the incident of the arrest of Ibrahima Jaite,
affaire Ibrahima Jaite ci jappam,
who was a magistrate at the time,
nga xamne ni magistrate la jamono bobu,
really made most of us to be very scared at the time.
Daldi won tital ñu bari ci lolu.
And at some point we were lost as to what to do.
Te jamono bobu na dañ daan rir sax ci lan lañ doon wara def.
Yes, so this incident occurred when I was already a traveling magistrate.
Li mu ngi xew jamono bi nga xamé ni man time bobu nonu magistrate la rek di wër.
I recall there was this day that I was coming back home from official duties.
Jamono bobu na ma ngi ñib ci bi ma joggé ko ben liggéey.
I had just crossed the Bara Banjul ferry this thing.
Ma ngi just jamono bobu rek ma ngi jall ci Banjul Bara ferry bi.
So I received a call from one of my colleagues at the time, one Your Worship Blessed.
That
she wants us to discuss something very important.
I
crossed over and after going home and then relaxing, I went to see her. And we had a discussion and she informed me, she asked me whether I am aware of the arrest of Your Worship Jaite at the time.
Justice Jaite.
I answered in the negative because I wasn't aware of it. So she explained to me the facts surrounding his arrest. I understand that it had to do with a judgment, or let me say a decision that he took in court. If I recall well, he struck out a matter, and then they had to arrest him based on the fact that he struck out the matter, and he was detained. So
Mr. Gomez?
Yes?
Is it because the state had an interest in the matter that was being handled by the said Mr. Jaite?
Lol xana dafa fekkon nak ne nga xamne modi nguur gi amon nañ aajo ci lol nga xamne mo doon xew bi tax ñu japp Mr. Jaite.
Obviously yes, I do not know the case in itself in question.
Waaw man wa na xam nak tefa bu non ci bopam.
But I know he was arrested by agents of the state at the police.
Waaye nak xam na ni dal ñi liggéey ci nguur gi ñoko jappon.
And so my main interest was that regardless of whoever has interest in the matter,
man nag suma li nga xam ne ni moo nekkoon suma taxawaay moo nekkoon nag ak ku munti doon koo xam ne ni moo amoon aajo ci mbir mi.
At the time, we were only interested in the fact that the arrest was unlawful.
jamono boobu nag ñun li nga xam ne loolu lañ amoon soxla rek moo nekk ne jàpp boobu ñu jàpp ko dëppoowut ak yoon.
And the subsequent detention was also unlawful.
ak li nga xam ne noonu lañ ko tegee benn place loolu tamit dëppoowutoon ak yoon.
Because it was totally wrong to arrest a judicial officer in the course of his official duties.
ndax jaadu pour ñu jàpp nit ci jamono bi nga xam ne mu ngi dox liggéey.
Of course, later we will come to realize that it was a case that the government, of course, had an interest in. That was why he was arrested.
ndax mu jégi ci dañu yëg ne daal nekk na mbir moo xam ne ni nguur gi am nañ ci aajo moo tax ñu jàpp ko.
Mr. Gomez, for clarification, can you indicate what state agents arrested your worship Jaita at that time?
Pour leeral rek Mr. Gomez sax di ñu mën a wax yan ndawi buur ñoom ñooy ñi nga xam ne ñoo jàppoon Mr. Jaita jamono boobu.
I do not know who conducted the immediate arrest at the time.
xam nga kan moo def nag jàpp boobu noonu ci jamono jooju.
But I know afterwards that he was arrested by the police.
waaye nag mu jégi ci laa xam ne daal ñu jàpp na ko di police.
Can you tell the commission where he was detained?
Ndax di nga mën a wax commission bi bañ ko jàppee fan lañ ko teg benn béréb.
I believe it was Banjul. I'm not sure. Yes, because when Jabang was arrested, he was arrested and placed into custody at the serious crime unit in Banjul.
Jabang biñ ko jàppee ñu ko yóbbuwoon serious crime unit bi ci Banjul.
I got to know his place of detention because I personally visited him in detention.
xamoon naa mu jégi fan lañ ko tegoon ndax demoon naa seeti ko.
But for your worship, Ibrahima Jaita accident was.
waaye nag your worship Ibrahima Jaita comme ni mu nekkee woon.
I never visited him.
mosuma koo dem seeti.
I only organized the meeting of all magistrates at the time.
man ma dama oote woon rek meeting yi magistrate yëpp ci jamono boobu.
And then that was when we approached the CJ's office.
te mooy jamono bi ñu àggee ci office ci Chief Justice bi.
Mr. Gomez, can you tell the commission why you found it necessary to arrange a meeting with all the magistrates?
Mr. Gomez, ndax di ñu mën a wax nag lan moo tax nga gis ne jar na pour nga oote ndaje boo xam ne yaa ngi ko doon seex ak magistrate yi.
We back then it was difficult to even see ourselves as a united body as magistrates.
jamono boobu nag dana daan jafe pour gis ñu daal ne bennoo lañ di comme ay magistrate.
Because of the problems we were facing at the time.
ndeg jafe-jafe yi nga xam ne moom lañ doon jànkuwante ci jamono boobu.
The possibility of being victimized for actions you take in court.
te tamit nag nga xam ne ni mën nañ laa lor ci jéego yi nga xam ne moom nga jël ci court bi.
And I can tell you with certainty that most magistrates were being careful, very careful of the decisions that they take in court, especially when they feel that it attracts executive interest.
te mën naa laa wax fii ne magistrate dañ daan bàyyi seen xel bu baax a baax ci mboolem luñ daan dogal rawatina nag layoo yoo xam ne ni daal gis nañ ne nguur gaa ngi ci teg seen bët.
And I had already experienced firsthand this type of interference from the Chief Justice's office, who claimed to have been called by the president by the time.
nga xam ne ni man sax de njëkk naa am jànkuwante bu mel noonu ci jamono boo xam ne ni Chief Justice wax na ne daal call na ko nag the office of the president.
So my opinion was that if that does not stop,
man nag suma xalaat moo nekkoon bu fekkee loolu taxawutoon.
we will all be victims subsequently.
ñëpp dañu mujjee loolu ci lu mel noonu.
That was what prompted me to organize the meeting.
lii moo taxoon ma oote woon meeting boobu.
So having done that, you met the CJ.
ci kaw loolu nag moo tax nga dem ci Chief Justice.
Yes.
Can you tell us what happened after you met him?
And
who was the CJ at that time?
dañu mën a wax lan xew ba nga gisee ak moom ak kan mooy woon Chief Justice bi jamono boobu.
The CJ at the time is still Emmanuel Fakbela.
ba tey rek Emmanuel Fakbele moo fa nekk Chief Justice.
So when I spoke to Your Worship Blessed,
bi ma wax ne Your Worship Blessed,
and I said to him that I had gone through the same ordeal.
te ci laa ko wax ne ko nag jafe-jafe yooyu may daj naa ko.
And I can guarantee her that if we don't do something about it, it will still keep on occurring.
te laa ko garanti ne bu fekkee ne daal defuñ ci dara dafay continuer rek de.
So I started calling some few magistrates. I called my friend Your Worship Abdullah Fati.
ci laa oo nag suma xarit magistrate Abdoulaye Fati.
I've called other magistrates as well.
ci laa oo yeneen magistrate yi tamit.
She herself called as well some of our colleagues.
moom itamit mu oo yenn si ay moromam.
I think she must have posted it on our chat group.
yaakaar naa daal daf ko tasaare woon rek ci fiñ di penc mi de waxtaanee ñun ñëpp.
So we took we agreed on a date for the meeting and the venue. We agreed to meet at Kanifing Court. So when we met at Kanifing Court, I think most of the magistrates were present.
Because include your worship Abdullah Fati?
Yes, he was very present. Yes, he was also seen as one of the radical magistrates at the time. Yes, so
your lead counsel has just brought me to order. I think I'm in the court, that's why I'm saying your worship. You should have said his worship.
His worship, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So, we all went to Kanifing Court. But then the most senior magistrates at the time, no, the most senior at the time. Yes, at the time.
Wow.
They were not really buying our own position. Also was seen as the radical magistrates. Because some of us were really advocating for very, very strict measures. These include even number one, going to see the CJ and demanding an immediate release of our colleague. Chief Justice issuing a press release condemning the actions of the executive. Even possibly having a sit-down strike. But then we could not attain all that. Because even though we had agreed to go and meet the CJ, some of our seniors at the time were really not buying the idea of using unconventional means to address this situation.
CJ being the main supervisor of the courts,
Chief Justice and
over the magistrates, why did your senior see it as a problem to actually meet him and address your problems that you were facing?
Chief Justice
I don't understand the question. I don't understand the question.
The CJ, according to the Constitution,
Yes.
Chief Justice is the
overall head of all the courts, and he has supervisory and is to administer the courts. My question is, as magistrates, if you have issues that you want to address, isn't the CJ the right person to meet to address those situations?
Chief Justice
Very, very correct. Depending on the matter, depending on the importance of the matter, there are matters that we will have to see the Master of the High Court, some perhaps JS, but then matters of this concern can only be addressed by the CJ at the time.
Wow. Chief Justice
So why were the principal magistrates, the most senior magistrates, afraid of going to see the CJ to address these issues?
Principal magistrate bi ragalon pour dem gisse ak Chief Justice bi.
The repercussions, the consequence of those actions. I'm sure that would be the reason why they were really much worried about how we approach the CJ. So they were not adverse to seeing the CJ, but how we see the CJ, how we approach him. Some of these magistrates have been serving there for a very long period of time, 5 years, 6, 7, 8 years. Some of them had families, wives, and children. Some of us at the time were very single. So maybe I will say that maybe perhaps rightly so or wrongly so, maybe they were putting into consideration so many reasons, and so they were fearful of maybe losing their jobs, being sanctioned, and being wrongly, being wrongly sanctioned. So it appears as if these were the worries.
So, Mr. Gomez, would it be correct to say that because these issues could not be arrested,
Mr. Gomez,
and you could not meet with the CJ on these issues that the magistrates were facing? Other magistrates were also arrested because of judgments that they gave.
Yes, to the second tier of your question, but yes, we end up seeing the CJ.
Wow, Chief Justice.
Yes, we end up having a demanding for a meeting with the Chief Justice.
Chief Justice.
Tell the Commission what happened in that meeting.
Yes, so we pressed on because the meeting was very lengthy. We first met among ourselves, the magistrates.
Meeting.
And then it was then I realized that perhaps because I was always seen as the most stubborn at the time. But then I could tell you that there were some other colleagues of mine who were really, really adamant on making sure that the right thing has been done. Yes, Joseph Jabang, his was Abdullah Fati, Blessed, and some other few of our colleagues who were really who would really condemn these actions in no uncertain terms. So we pushed to go and see the CJ.
Chief Justice.
In fact, we demand that we will see the CJ on the same date after the meeting.
Chief Justice.
But then we decided that we will write the names of all the magistrates present at the time so that we wouldn't have people to back out by the time we reach Banjul.
So
we did that, and then some of us who had who were driving the official vehicles by that time had to we all just hopped in and then drove to Banjul. And we demanded that we must meet the CJ.
Chief Justice.
So waiting for some time. We were given audience. And when the meeting started, there were some of our colleagues were addressing the concerns we have raised in our own exclusive meeting.
I
recall Your Worship Blessed also spoke about our problems at the time, and then the arrest of Your Worship Jaite.
Blessed Your Worship Jaite.
His Worship Omar Jabang, who is still serving as a magistrate also, who will subsequently be arrested, also was speaking in that meeting.
Omar Jabang
condemning the actions of the executive in the arrest of our colleague.
Executive
And demanding that the judicial administration, that in the presence of the CJ, address the situation and the problem forthwith. So I also recall His Worship Abdullah Fati also speaking in the meeting, talking about.
His Worship Abdullah Fati meeting.
But before he spoke, the CJ made some comments.
Chief Justice
because Fagbele, in addressing some of the comments from some of our colleagues, said, well, I will paraphrase, was saying that we have to learn to obey instructions.
dafa ne daal war nañoo jàng nag pour mën a fexe pour di dégg ndigal.
And be careful as to the judgments that we deliver.
te ñu bàyyi xel ci ni nga xam ne noonu la ñu àggalee dogal yi.
That we must always weigh the interests of the government.
tey tamit foog si rek ñu daal di doxal li nga xam ne mooy bàyyi xel li nga xam ne nii mooy aajo si nguur gi.
That there is no point of being stubborn or trying to prove a point.
tey tamit waruñoo nekk di dëgër bopp wala di jéem a wéral yenn boor yi.
He compared the situation to, because he likes giving proverbs, so he compared the situation to a child who finds himself in a pond of crocodiles or pool of crocodiles.
moom nag dafa yomb di léebu mu ne mu ngi mel ne xale boo xam ne dafa daanu nag si ndox moo xam ne ni ay jësi ga ko wër.
Who will dip his hand to try to save the child?
kan mooy jéem a dugal loo xam ne pour jéem a sowe xale boobu.
The message was very, very clear.
waa bataaxel bi na leeroon na de.
That the child would have been any magistrate who was been detained in this time, Justice Mr. Jaite.
ne xale boobu de mooy mooy magistrate boobu nga xam ne moom lañ jàpp jamono jooju.
And the pool of crocodile would be, of course, the government.
tey tamit jësi yi ko wër nag nga mooy nguur gi.
So he will not dip his hand to save anybody.
kon nag moom du dugal loxoom pour jéem a sowe kenn.
So his advice would be for us to be cautious and to listen to advice.
mooy nag suñ lim ñu wax nag mooy nekk nañ bàyyi xel te tamit di dégg ndigal.
Mr. Gomez, are you telling this commission that Justice Fakbele at the time wanted you all to be a rubber stamp judiciary?
Mr. Gomez, dang ñu bëgg wax ne Fakbele jamono yu dafa bëggoon ko xamne rek ni ngeen atté da ngeen ko jël ci wàllu ndigal ngeen defé ko noonu.
Yes, in relation to the lower bench as the magistrates, I think maybe you'll have the judges to come and testify. I don't know how the arrangement is. But for us at the lower bench at the time, that was exactly, you're very correct.
waaw kon noonu la yow waaye su fekkee ci ñun magistrat yi nekkoon ci suuf moom loolu li nga wax dëgg la.
So yes, go ahead, counsel.
Did he take any action to facilitate the release of your worship Jaite?
Ndax am na yeen jéego yoo leen jël nag pour ñu mun a bàyyi your worship Jaite?
I don't think so. I don't have any evidence that he took some action in the subsequent release of his worship Jaite.
fooguma ko de ndax gisuma benn firnde boo xam ne ni jël wane na ne moom jël na ay jéego pour ñu mun a bàyyi Justice Jaite.
Even though at the end of the meeting he said that he would try to see what he can do.
ci njeexteel meeting bi sax dafa wax rek ne daal dana seet daal lu mu mun a def.
But yes, you want to ask a question?
I was just going to refer to your statement.
Dama doon bëgg a jëm rek ci li nga xam ne mooy kàddu yi nga binda.
You indicated that Fakbele
wax nga fa ne Fakbele
said he would try and beg the president
ne moom dina jéem a ñaan président bi
and then get back to you.
ba pare dina leen wax lu ci faxee ko.
Can you explain on that further?
dañu mën a gën a leeralal loolu.
Yes, that was very, very correct. In fact, this happened at the time. Some of our senior magistrates at the time would plead to him and then inform him that they know he can do something about it.
waaw lii mooy jamono bi nga xam ne ni yenn njiitil magistrat yooyu danañ ko wax ne ko daal waxtaan ak moom neexal ko wan ko ne ko daal am na lu mu ci mën a def.
Because they were more diplomatic than some of us.
ñoom daal ñoo gënoon a am yar ci li wax yenn yi di ñun.
Not am yar, I'm diplomatic. Yes, they try to say it in a very nice way.
mooy am yar rek.
Fine, that's fine. All right. Anyways, so apparently that was the time that he made those similar comments.
Can you tell this commission how long Justice Your Worship Jaite was detained?
Commission bi Justice Jaite
And we received information that he was detained at serious crime in Banjul.
Jot nañ xibaar nag wone ne fiñ ko téye woon mooy serious crime unit bu Banjul.
I think he was detained for some days. I'm not sure exactly how many days, but because after the meeting, I had to go back to Farafenni.
Gannaaw meeting bi nag dama delluwaatoon Farafenni waaye xam naa daal jàpp nañ ko ci ay fan.
Yes, I can vividly recall, but not exactly how many days.
waaye nag mun naa fàttaliku lu daal waaye xamuma nag ñaata fan.
But then, in fact, before the intervention of some of our senior colleagues,
waaye nag balaa suñ yeneen kilifa yi di ci dugal seen loxo rek.
In trying to sweet talk the CJ at the time, Fakbele, to try to do something about the situation.
Pour neexal nag Chief Justice bi pour mu jéem a def dara.
When the CJ made the comment that we must always look at the interest of the government at the time,
jamono bi nga xamee ne wax na li ne daal dañ waroon a bàyyi xel rek li xaaju ci nguur gi waxtu wu ne.
and we must consult before we deliver certain judgments.
te foog si ñuy diisoo balaa ñooy dogal.
I was sitting in the meeting with His Worship Fati.
maa ngi toogoon ak His Worship Fati ci meeting bi.
Because I can't recall even speaking at I don't think I even spoke at a meeting.
mun maa fàtte ndax man sax wax naa sax ci meeting bi.
Because it was very expected I would even speak in the meeting. So definitely I was really impressed with some of our colleagues who were really brave in addressing the issues.
Séntu woon nañ sax ne dinaa wax de waaye ndax nag maa ngi doyloo waanoon naa suma yeneen moroom yi nga xam ne ni wax nañ ci meeting bi.
Because when His Worship Jabang spoke in very strong terms and condemned these actions,
jamono bi nga xam ne ni Worship Jabang wax na ci ay kàddu yu wér di ŋàññi nag loolu.
and the CJ made these comments,
te Chief Justice wax kàddu yi.
I recall His Worship Fati stood up and then also was making some comments as well.
ci laa gis rek His Worship Fati moom it jóg taxaw moom it di wax ay kàddu moom itamit.
And if I'm allowed to paraphrase, I think he said to the CJ that why should we deliver judgments or make decisions and then considering the interests of the president? Who is the president?
ci fàttaliku laa wax na kàddu yi ne waaw lan mooy tax ñun suñuy def ay dogal di bàyyi xel lu jëm ci mbiri xaajo si président bi kan mooy président bi.
That we must be independent in our decisions.
foog si rek ñuy dox ak suñu sago nag si suñuy def suñuy dogal.
So I recall pulling his suit and telling him, my friend, you're really going too far.
ci laa ko xàcce nag ci suutam bi ne ko suma waa ji yaa ngi suuri de.
That they always say I am very stubborn, but this is just too far from you. Just
too much. dañ deewane dama dëgër bopp waaye nag bii moom suuri nga.
Yeah, so that was how.
Gomez?
Yes.
Was he wrong in the statement that he made before the CJ?
Mr. Gomez, ndax loolu dafa juum ci li nga xam ne mooy kàddu yi wax ci kanam CJ.
He was absolutely correct.
moom kay moom correct woon na.
I didn't even expect anything less from him.
séntu moom leneen lu gën a tuuti loolu ci moom.
I was just impressed with the fact that there were some of my colleagues who were really brave and really courageous in speaking truth to power.
kontaan naa rek ne am na suma yenn moroom yoo xam ne daal ni ñu doon waxee daal ñu am nañ wax ci seen kàddu.
And so it was a relief to see some of our colleagues to not be alone in the ship.
te tamit nag loolu nag daloon na xel rek ne daal nekku na ñun rek ñoo nekkoon ci gaal gi.
Yeah, so basically that was the rationale behind my reaction to him.
te tamit loolu moo doon dalil bi nekkoon ci suma jéego yi ma jëloon.
Was it also the fact that you were afraid of what might happen to him after that meeting?
ndax da nga ragaloon xëj na dina am lu ko dal gannaaw buñ bàyyi ko ci meeting boobu.
Oh yes, I would not naturally be. I would naturally say the same thing, but when it comes to somebody, I really careful. So of course, yes, I was really really worried because he was really just being very direct and very raw, as if you allow me to use the word.
waaw xam ndax dafa nekkoon koo xam ne nii rek dafa fësoon ci lim doon wax rek ci jamono boobu.
And it was absolutely correct.
waaye nag mu ngi woon ci dëgg.
It is therefore correct that you're telling this commission that you got nothing fruitful from that meeting from Fakbele.
kon mun nañoo wax ne mun ngaa wax commission bi ne seen ndaje boobu ngeen doon def Fakbele amu leen dara loo leen soxla daal lu ci faaxee ko.
Absolutely correct, because when the meeting I think ended in the evening around 8 o'clock or so, or thereabout.
ci loolu waaw ndax meeting bi dem na ba boori juróom-ñetti waxtu ci ngoon ci jamono boobu.
So when we were out of the office, some of us were trying to talk to some of our colleagues and to see what would be the next step. But then you can clearly see that most of our colleagues were not really willing to take it any further.
I didn't get that one.
I said when we were out of the meeting, some of us were talking to some of our colleagues to see how best we can take it further. But it was clear that most of our colleagues were really worried about taking the matter to another level. So yes, it died a natural death.
As per your statement, you've indicated that there were 2 other magistrates who were arrested that you know of.
Secretary, wax nga fi tamit ne am na yeneen ñaari magistrate yuñ jàpp ñoo xam ne yow xam nga leen.
I think the 2 that were arrested were His Worship Jaite and His Worship Jabang. I am not sure whether I mistakenly mentioned some other third person.
No, that is correct. Well, in your statement, you indicated that Jabang, Your Worship Omar Jabang, was arrested.
Yes.
Omar Jabang ak Ibrahima Jaite.
That's correct.
And you further indicated that an executive directive was received on Your Worship Abdoulaye Fati.
Jox nga fi tamit ne am na ndogal lu bàyyi ko ca président ba lu aju ci Your Worship Abdoulaye Fati.
Can you tell the Commission about these two?
Wax ñu ñaar ñu naka la demee.
In the manner of the executive directive received by or was seen by His Worship Fati.
ci li nga xam ne mooy dogal bu jógee ko ca président bu di gis ko di Fati.
This I recall came out of a discussion I had with him.
lii nag ñëwee na ci waxtaan woo xam ne ni amoon naa ko moom.
Because we were very close at the time.
ndax boobu ñun dañ jegeyante woon lool.
And so we always discuss our problems during the course of our work.
ndax waxtu wu ne rek ñu ngi waxtaanee li nga xam ne ni mooy suñuy jafe-jafe ci liggéey bi.
I forgot the name of the case that had been an issue, but apparently an executive directive was brought to him and showed to him by one police officer.
waaye nag xam nga ban case la woon waaye nag am na dogal boo xam ne mu ngi jóge koon ci kaw won ko nag di benn police officer.
Yes. Yes.
Can you tell the Commission where the executive directive came from?
Ndega muna wax commission bi digal lolu baye ko ca kaw ci kan la jógee.
His Worship Fati will tell me that as far as he was concerned, the information he received from the officer prosecuting the case at the time.
li mu waxee rek ne loolu bataaxel bi mu jógee ci officer bi doon prosecute mbir mi ci waxtu woowu.
Said to him that it was from the office of the president.
wax na ko ne ko dogal boobu mu ngi jógee ko ci office président bi.
And he refused. His Worship Fati refused to receive the executive order, I think.
tey tamit His Worship Fati dafa bañoon a dégg na ndigal googu.
But this arises out of a discussion I had with him.
waaye nag li muy ñëwee ci waxtaan wi nga xam ne nii moom laa amoon ak moom.
Therefore, you're telling this Commission that it was not unusual for magistrates to receive executive directives.
Kon yaa ngi war a wax commission bi ne daal loolu daan faral di am la pour magistrate di am ndogal yoo xam ne mu ngi bàyyeekoo ci njiiti réew.
As to how
pour wax leen naka
to conduct their cases
la ñoo doxalee seeni dogal.
And also to influence the decision that they should make.
ak ko dugal seeni gémmiñ ci bépp dogal boo xam ne ñoom moom lañ war a def.
I would say it was not unusual for there to be interference in the manner in which we administer our case at the time. I will say it was not unusual. But as you can see from the executive directive that you have just shown me, most of these directives don't really come directly to us magistrates. Yes, like I said, in fact, the one you showed me, I've just seen it in the tribunal here.
In the Commission.
And the Commission, I apologize.
Thank you. In your statement, you referred to a problem that you encountered with the NIA. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Statement bi wax nga ay jankuwante yoo xam ne am nga ko ak NIA.
Can you tell the Commission about it?
Wax ñu naka la demee.
The issue regarding the NIA was prior to my transfer to SAO Mansakoka and Nyomi.
Suma jankuwante NIA lu jiitu la bala may dem ñu toxal ma ci SAO ak Mansakonko yi.
In fact, I had just delivered a judgment in default of appearance. I had just delivered a judgment in default of appearance of the defendant.
Li nak dama dogal rek lu aju ci wàlli ci teewate ki nga xam ne ni ñoom lañ ñoo lañ tuumal.
The judgment I delivered, was one that we call judgment in default, meaning the defendant did not appear, but we still give judgment.
Mooy jamono bi nga xam ne mooy dogal bi nga xam ne ni ki nga xam ne moom lañ tuumal teewutoon waaye ñu continuer dogal.
Because there was a law, the law is very clear on those situations.
Ndax loi bi nag am na lum leeral ponk yoo xam ne leeral na ko ci fànn yu mel noonu.
So one day I was just coming from, I think a day or two after or thereabout, I was just coming from the courthouse.
Bés wala ñaari fan gannaaw loolu maa ngi doon jóge ko ci courthouse bi rek.
Yes, just a week or so. I can't recall the exact date, but then I was coming back home and I received a call.
Call.
From a private number.
Private number.
And the caller happened to be someone I know. He even testified before the TRRC about 2 months ago.
Caller bi nak nek na ko xamne ni kuma xam la ndax ñew na teew na fi ci pencum TRRC mi ñaari wër ci gannaaw.
Or thereabout, he testified in a matter of the alleged execution of the Ghanaians.
Waaw teew na fi di wax nak lu aju ci wali Ghanaian yoy ñu wax ne dañ leen fi reyé.
And that's Usman Jallo.
That's Usman Jallo.
So he called.
Mu call ma.
And he introduced himself.
Mu wan mo bopam nak.
As an NIA operative.
Ne mom mu ngi liggéey buntu NIA.
Either overseeing or being the director of operations at the time.
Ne ben dal mo nek ki nga xamne moy baye xel bankas bi saytu wali operation wala moy jité operation.
And that he had received the office of the DG NIA had received a complaint about a judgment I delivered.
Ne office DG bu NIA dona tawat ne ci dogal bo xamne def na ko ci code bi.
So Mr. Gomez, now we've moved from judicial interference by the CJ.
Léegi nak taxul nañ nak ci li nga xamne modi si Chief Justice li mo duggal gemeñam ci atté bi.
The NIA interfering into judgments of the court.
Léegi nak ñu ñëw ci NIA ñoom tamit li ñoo duggal seen loxo ci atté bi ñoo def ci court yi.
Very correct.
Wow.
Tell this commission what the NIA officer Usman Jallo told you.
Waxal commission bi Usman Jallo momuy liggéey NIA lan la wax bim la téléphoné.
Yes, so he called me and he informed me about the orders that he had received.
Ci la ma call wax man ak dogal bi digal bi nga xamne ni mom la jot.
From his boss.
Ci bossam.
That I should be invited to the NIA premises.
Dañ ma wara o nak ci NIA sen place.
That if I refuse, I should be arrested.
Ne suma bañé dañ may japp.
And so he said to me that I know you don't know I work for the NIA, but apparently I work for the NIA.
Ci la ma wax ne nak xamone ma ngi liggéey NIA way nak xamal ne ma ngi liggéey NIA.
Because I had met him at the University of the Gambia. He was studying law at the time.
Te temen nak fekkante nañ ci University bu Gambia ñu ngi jang loi jamono bobu.
When I used to go there as a lecturer, invited to lecture on certain topics.
Ci jamono bo xamne dañ ma fa daan o ma dem pour jangale fa ci yenn topic yi.
And so we spoke, and then he said to me that well, that is his order, but then I explained to him what happened.
Ci la ma wax nak ne ma lool moy dogalam wa ci la ko leralal li xew.
And I told him that well, but you guys don't have to call me.
Ci la ko ne waye na waru leen ma wo.
Let the complainant go on appeal.
Nak ki tawat nak na dem appeal.
Besides, you guys don't even have powers to interfere in these situations.
Te ndax sa yeen sa amu leen doole pour dugal seen loxo ci mbir mi.
He said to me that he advised same to the DG.
Xelaat bobu la wax na director bi.
But then the director wouldn't just listen.
Waye na director bi dal uyuwut ko sax.
That he himself believed that they should not interfere.
Ne mom ci bopam sax gëm na waru ñoo dugal seen loxo ci mbir mi.
But then since he was only carrying orders.
Ndax mom dal dogal rek la nekkon di doxal jamono bobu.
But he said to me that I should now come and meet him.
Waye na ci la wax ne fi nek ni na ko wara dem fekki ko.
Possibly at his house.
Ben dal ci negam.
Instead of coming to the NIA premises.
Ni bala may dem dal ci NIA.
Mr. Gomez, were you asked to report to the NIA headquarters in Banjul?
Mr. Gomez, dañ la laaj pour nga dem uyu ji ci makkaani NIA ba nekk ca Banjul.
Yes, that was his first instruction.
Waaw ci loolu moo nekkoon digalam bu njëkk.
Okay, you may continue.
Yes, but subsequently, as we discussed over the matter, he suggested that I should go to his house. Well, he knew me personally.
Ndax mu jégi daal ci biir waxtaan muy naa dem ci këram ndax moom xam na ma moom ci boppam.
So I went.
Bi ma demee ci këram.
In Bijulo.
Ci Bijulo.
And then I was really worried.
Ma jaaxle woon lool.
Because even though he knew me, but we were not friends.
Naam sax xam na ma waaye nag nekkuñu woon ay xarit tamit.
I didn't even know much about him.
Xamuma ko bu baax.
And to visit someone who was working for the NIA in that position at the time.
Pour seeti nag koo xam ne mu ngi liggéey NIA ci jamono boobu.
Concerning matters that you were asked to report to the NIA was really worrying.
Surtout nag ci mbir moo xam ne ni daal mu ngi jëm si mu ngi aajo nag di NIA nekk na lu jaaxle lool.
I went, and then when he directed me to his house, I went to the gate, and then he came out. And then he asked that I drive my official car inside his house and parked it there. Because I had a judiciary number plate. And so it was not safe that NIA operators may see my car in his house, and then they may send very wrong information to the Director General at the time. So many things were going on in my head at this time. But then since I came all the way to the gate, I decided to just abide by his suggestion and then just drive in. So I went in, and then we had a very lengthy discussion. But I was still stressing on the point that he was really the NIA does not really have powers to even call me and ask me to explain certain decisions that I took in court. And he said to me that he agreed with me, and then definitely he will go back and then try to solve the matter with the DJ. And then when I went home the following day, he called me and said to me, well, he has solved the matter with the Director General. And since then I haven't heard of the matter.
Mr. Gomez, would it be correct to say that you escaped
Mr. Gomez,
going to the NIA headquarters? Because you knew the agent that called you.
That is the only reason why I escaped that, because he even told me that prior to them contacting me, because there was no way they could have had my number. That agents were sent to the CJ's office. Chief Justice Officer about this matter, and the CJ would tell them that they can go ahead and deal with the matter because I was very stubborn. Yeah, so basically that was the only reason why I evaded arrest.
Mr. Gomez, thank you very much for coming today.
Mr. Gomez,
I hand over the witness to the commissioners.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Counsel, and thank you, Mr. Patrick Gomez, for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Quite an intrigue, all these interferences with you personally and with the system. It's extraordinary. Commissioners, if you have any questions, please indicate. Commissioner Carr, you have the floor, please.
After that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman.
And thank you to Mr. Gomez, my very good brother and friend.
Mr. Gomez.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming to testify before the commission. I want to commend you for the good work that you have done. And for standing up for the right things. And it's not a surprise to me because I've known you since childhood. We grew up together in Joswang. I just have one small question. Who was the NIA director when the issue was, when you were called by Mr. Jallo? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Carr. I really am grateful to appear before the commission and then to see you as a commissioner.
kontaan naa lool ma ñëw ci kanam commission bi te gis la nga nekk ci kilifa yi seq pencam commission bi.
If I may say this thing before I answer the question.
Mun naa wax lii balaa maa tontu sa laajte bi.
Is that regarding who the director was at the time.
Pour nag kan moo nekkoon director bi waxtu boobu.
If you will permit me, I may not want to answer the question.
Bu fekkee ne mun nga maa may bugguma tontu laajte boobu.
The reason being, when I resigned from the judiciary at the time.
Li xew na mooy jamono bi ma bàyyee liggéey ci judiciary bi jamono boobu.
Funnily enough, I had worked as a defense attorney.
Jamono boobu nag nekk na ku daan taxawal nit ñi ci court bi.
And I represented some of these NIA people in the case of Solo Sandeng for 3 good years.
Te tamit bokk naa ci ñi nga xam ne ñoo taxawuloon NIA yooyu ñu doon atte ci mbiri Solo Sandeng ci diiram ñetti at.
In fact, I was jointly with the lawyer for the second accused person, Louis Mendy, for 3 good years.
Nga xam ne ni maa nekkoon lawyer yi ki nga xam ne ni bokkoon na ci ñi tuumaal Louis Mendy ci ñaari at.
So consequently, I've in one way or the other defended these people as well.
Te tamit kon dafa mel ni rek taxawal naa ñi ak nu munti mel.
With your kind permission, I would want to respectfully decline to answer the question.
Ci sa tontu nag dama bëgg a ànd ak yar rek bañ a tontu nag sa laajte boobu jërëjëf.
Commissioner Carr, are you satisfied with that, or can he write it
yes.
On a piece of paper for you to say? And I would instruct him to do so. Which one?
With your permission, Chair, he can write it down.
On a piece of paper?
Yes, thank you.
I'm very pleased. Thank you so much for that understanding.
You're not writing it on a napkin, are you? Thank you very much, Mr. Gomez. Imam C, you have the floor, please.
Imam C, sa mic bi.
jërëjëf ci testify bi.
Thank you very much for testifying.
sa wax yu rafet yi.
With all the police words that you said here.
li ma lay dëgëral mooy.
What I am to declare here is.
li la soowee ci oto bu ñuul boobu.
What saved you from that tinted vehicle?
mooy atte bu jub bi nga atte.
It's only the correct judgment that you have done.
ak dëggal sa waajur yi liñ la wax fanaanal foofu nga fanaan fa.
And the advice you took from your parents that you have to spend the night wherever you were.
ñaari kaddu yooyu moo la amee ba fi nga toll.
Those are the 2 things that keep you up to here where you are now.
wax dëgg moom sakk ci.
Always be truthful.
nga dëggal sa kilifa.
And you always adhere to whatever your parents tell you.
wax nga ne sa papa daf dee fekke si sa at yu bari.
You said that your father used to witness some of your cases.
lu ko indi foofu yëpp daf dee ragal ne nga bañ a juum.
All what brought him there is to guide you.
loolu rek moo ko yóbbu foofu.
That's the only thing that took him there.
du ne dafay tiitaru ne lawyer nga wala leneen nga.
Not that he is proud of you, that you are a lawyer or not.
nga bàyyi ci kel ci loolu nag lu baax.
So you have to be careful of that one.
jërëjëf.
Thank you.
Jërëjëf Commissioner si kontaan naa trop si aide bi.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, Mr. Gomez, if you have concluding remarks to make, you may please proceed now to make them.
Sir Gomez, so amee yeneen kàddu nag comme laajte yi jeex na kàddu yoo mun a tëjee mun nga koo def.
Yes, shortly, I will just want to thank you very much, Commissioner.
I
thank all the commissioners present
for
your patience and your time. My learned senior, thank you so much for your time. And everyone working at the TRRC. I will want to say that since we are moving towards a new page, it is quite important for us to understand the sense of patriotism. The concept that collective interest should always outweigh individual interest. To go back to the basic to the basic guiding principles of our religion and our culture. And to have the best interest of each other at heart. I believe that this, if we all do it, the country will move forward. So because sometimes it is not only bravery or being courageous, but the overwhelming interest that there has to be the collective good, it has to be protected. That being said, I thank you once again. And I am grateful for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gomez. Yes, we're the ones who should thank you for coming to testify. Council, if you have any submissions to make, please proceed to do so now before we conclude.
Mr. Chair, the letter dated the 15th March 2015 with the heading Incidental Report should be tendered as Exhibit 222A. Permission. And the name written down by the witness to identify the DG should be 222B.
B.
Thank you very much.
Fine, thank you, Council. This brings us to the end of our proceedings for today. We will resume tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock sharp. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.